Hey you guys, what's going on? Today I thought it would be fun to do a mock draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. I wanted to wait till the combine to make this video to see how certain players will do and to see obviously if we got the 14th or 15th overall pick. Luckily we actually won the coin toss and we got the 14th overall pick. I mean, it really doesn't make that big of a difference, but it's still nice to have. Obviously this is very subject to change because free agency hasn't started yet. Who we pick up in free agency could drastically change how we draft, but for now, these are just guys that I think the Eagles should consider going into the draft. The first round pick is incredibly tough to call. I mean, this year's draft class is loaded in the positions that we need, so obviously for the first round, it would just make sense to take the best player available, which for a lot of people is Corey Davis or Mike Williams at the wide receiver position, which is a huge need for us, and if they're available, I think we absolutely should take them. However, for whatever reason, I think it's just my gut feeling, I don't think they're going to be available. So if they are available, take them. If they aren't available, I think we should be going after Sidney Jones, the cornerback from Washington. Obviously, we need a corner, and he's the guy that I think could be a starter day one. He isn't the biggest corner out there. He's only 6 foot, 180 pounds, but his coverage skills are top notch. And I think, spending our first round pick on a guy that could potentially be a starter day one, I think it's worth it. For the second round, I decided to pick Kupp from Eastern Washington. I'm kind of following with my first round picks, so assuming we didn't get a wide receiver in the first round, we would pick one in the second round. If we got a wide receiver in the first, I'd say corner in the second. But I'm just following my own mock draft. So, second round, Kupp. I think this guy's a beast, At first, I didn't think he'd be available in the second round because he made such a strong case for himself in the Senior Bowl. However, his combine, he's looking pretty bad. I think he ran a 4.6 40. It was just something bad. He's not performing very well at the combine. But if you watch tape on this guy, he's absolutely phenomenal, and he has very similar size to Corey Davis and Mike Williams, which are two strengths that everyone talks about. Kupp, he's within like an inch of Mike Williams and maybe like 10 pounds heavier than Davis. He's really just somewhere in between them. And my problem with Mike Williams and Corey Davis is that Mike Williams, he uses his size to try and be more physical than the other guy. And I don't think that's going to work well against pro corners. It might. He might be able to be like the next Dez Bryant, but I don't know. Corey Davis, he tends to catch the ball with his body a lot. Makes me worry, if he's got suspect hands. Kupp is pretty much the opposite. He's pretty quick. He can get some separation. And a majority of his catches are done with his hands, and that's something that I'd love to see. A lot of people are really overlooking Kupp, and I think he's one of those underrated players that could have a huge impact as a pro. For the third round, I decided to go with Jordan Willis, the defensive end from Kansas State. This guy is a huge pickup, especially if we trade away Connor Barwin. He's a little smaller for a DN. He's kind of like, I think he's a little bigger than Connor Barwin, but he's still one of the best players available at that position, and he's not projected to go very high, which is interesting. This guy's coming off a fantastic year where he had 17.5 tackles for loss and 11.5 sacks. Obviously the competition will be much harder in the NFL. I think it was just due to a lack of competition he was able to pad his stats. But still, just looking at this guy, I think he's a really interesting pickup. And obviously our defensive line is going to be a little broken with Connor Barwin potentially getting traded. Benny Logan possibly not being re-signed. I had to think about his name for a second. So a defensive lineman, particularly a defensive end, wouldn't be too bad of a pickup. For a third round, I think it's kind of worth it. For our first fourth round pick, I'm going with Samaje Perine from Oklahoma. Now, a lot of people are talking about Joe Mixon from Oklahoma, and yeah, he's talented, but oh my god, this guy, Semaj Apul, is just something fucking different. This guy is the definition of a power running back. This guy, he absolutely killed it at the combine, putting up 30 reps on the bench, beating out every other running back and most of the O-linemen. This guy is insane. You watch tape from this guy, he can just destroy guys. He runs through. It takes 2 to 3 guys to take this guy down, and I think that's a guy that we need right now. We need a guy who can take a hit and block, and this guy seems to be the perfect guy. We have Sproles for 1 more year, and I think we should be using him as our receiver type back or third down back and focus on developing Smallwood into that rather than just picking up a guy like Joe Mixon who could do what Sproles is already doing right now. I think it would be more useful to get someone who can just do that power type running, someone who can really replace Ryan Matthews and actually do Ryan Matthews' job correctly. So I'm thinking 4th round pick. If this guy is available, we take him. For our second 4th round pick, I decided to go with Josh Reynolds from Texas A&M. This is another big time playmaker at the wide receiver position. His size is a little weird. He's 6'3" and 190 pounds. He has the size we want. I mean, he's a little skinny, but he did make a great case for himself, having 61 catches for over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. I think this is a guy that we could start right away. Obviously, he's a little smaller. I'd like to see him, beef up a little bit. He does have that sort of lanky appearance. But, if you look at what he's got similar speed to what Magloire can produce, and he's got the height of DGB. I feel like this guy could easily push either one of them out of their jobs and take the starting position right away. So if he's available at the 4th round, Josh Reynolds, I think he's a good pickup. For our 5th round pick, I decided to pick Palma Glory Jr., the linebacker from Arizona. This guy is a bit of a risk. He played 3 different positions in college. He started out as a quarterback, then moved to a running back. In the last 2 years, he's played linebacker, where he's had some pretty good success. But the problem is, going into the professional scene, I think that lack of experience as a linebacker will hurt him. I think he's definitely a project player that could easily develop into a starter, and I like his chances for it because he does perform very well. Right now, we don't know what's going to be happening with Michael Kendricks, but if this guy, if Michael Kendricks get traded, I think, Palma Glory Jr. could easily be a replacement for him if we do decide to trade him. So I think this guy, give him a little bit of time to work with it, see how he performs. I think this guy will surprise you. For our 6th round pick, I decided to pick Jeremey Clark, the cornerback from Michigan. This is another risky pick. He could have been at least a 2nd round pick if he was able to stay healthy, but unfortunately his year ended due to an ACL injury. If this guy can come back and perform 85 to 90%, maybe just a little bit shaved off, I think he'll be a solid pickup. He'd be a solid cornerback too. Maybe a backup, we'll see how Jalen Mills performs in this offseason, how he develops. But with that injury, it's hard to tell. I mean, you can never tell how a player's going to come back from an ACL injury. He could come back and be strong as before, or he could just, he won't even look like the same player. So it's a risk, but I think, for a little bit of depth at that cornerback position, I think a 6th round pick is worth it. Finally, for our 7th round pick, I decided to go with Jerry Ugokwe, the O-tackle from William & Mary. This guy is flying under the radar, and it's speculated that he might not even get drafted, but I think this is a guy that we should look into. This guy is an absolute fucking monster. 6'8", 310 pounds. This guy is just insane. I think he's like 4 inches taller than Jason Peters. He's a little bit lighter than Jason Peters, but you can kind of see the comparison if they were to stand side by side. I really don't know how well he plays. There isn't a whole lot of tape on him. But for his size alone and the fact that nobody's really looking at him, I think he's worth looking into. I think this guy could potentially be a Jason Peters replacement. I know we got Vaitai, but still, having more people at the O-line, I think that's always a good idea. And for a guy this size, I don't want to pass him up. But that's my mock draft. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm Motionless Gaming, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.